Hi, and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today we have a 2005, it's a Chevy Trailblazer. We're going to be changing front and rear brakes and rotors. So let me bring you up there. I'm going to show you what you're going to need, what tools you're going to need, and then how to get the job done. So all right, come out front and I'll explain what we're going to do. Okay, there's an example of what kind of tools you're going to need to get the job done. The bolts for the mounting bracket for the caliper was a little bit tight, so we actually have a breaker bar. Gives us a little more leverage so we can break them loose and get them off without a problem. The socket here, just so you know, is 18 millimeter. This is a 13 millimeter. We're going to use to take off the bolts to hold the caliper to the mounting bracket. A pair of cutting pliers. I'll explain why in a minute. An assortment of sockets just in case you need them. I don't think you will. A little pry bar such as this to push the pistons back in, or possibly a screwdriver. A file or some emery cloth or something to clean up any kind of rust that's on the mounting bracket. A tool such as this, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this one, but any tool to push the piston back in. We are going to need to replace the hardware on the caliper, and of course new brake pads, some silicone grease to put the lubricate everything before we put it back together. We're going to need something to clean up the hub, whether it's a disc or it's a razor blade or a scrape or a sander or whatever. These are the clips that actually go back on the disc indicator, and of course that nut right there. That nut makes the job just a little bit easier. Alright, so this is what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to come in the back right over here. We're going to take out that 13 millimeter there and this 13 millimeter right here. We're going to take the caliper, we're going to bring it over to the side, we're going to hang it with the hanger off out of the way, and then we're going to take out that 18 millimeter bolt right there, and there's one more 18 millimeter bolt down underneath here. These clips right here, you don't have to save these clips, you break these off and you throw them away. This is the first brake job being done, and these clips are actually on there just to keep the rotors on during the building process. So you break these off, throw them away, and that's it. Alright, now usually you will get in here with the pry bar and push the piston back in, but as you can see, we're not going to be able to get in there with that pry bar because we have that anti-rattle clip right there is in the way. So we're going to have to do it a little bit differently. But alright, let's get set up and let's get started. Okay, now remember I told you these clips, we're not going to use these. You just go on here with a pair of cutting pliers, you just grab them, pull them, and break it off. Same thing on the other side right here. You just grab it, pull it, get underneath here, and then these are both trash. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to break these two bolts loose right here. This one, and then this one here. Don't lose these because we are going to need to use these later. And then we're just going to take this caliper off like this. Okay. And now we're going to take the caliper, we're going to hook it on here, and we're just going to bring it up over here and out of the way. Alright, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to take out that 18 millimeter there and that 18 millimeter there. Remember I said these are a little bit tight. You can use a regular wrench or a regular ratchet, but with the additional leverage it makes it very easy. Now you want to break them both loose before you do anything, because if you try to break it loose with the one bolt out, I'll show you what's going to happen then. All right, so if you had one bolt out and you tried to break this one loose, when you try to break this loose, the entire caliper itself, the mounting bracket, will move like that. That's why you want to break both bolts loose before you take them out totally. All right, next thing we're going to do is we'll take this off. Now this, we're going to come back to this later. We are going to change the hardware, which is this stuff right here on both of them, but we'll come back to that in a minute. The rotor then just comes right off. And I'm going to bring you in there. I'm going to show you this here. And we talked about the rust on here. All of this rust that you see on here, that needs to come off. If you don't take this rust off, now you can't feel it obviously, but that part right there is a little bit of a bump that sticks out. If you put the rotor on, that rust, it's going to stick up just a little bit, and these brakes are going to pulsate like crazy. So we are going to come in here, we're going to clean these up with a disc, and once we clean them up, then we'll come back and we'll put it back together. Now, remember, I told you there's different ways of doing it. The way I'm going to do it here at the shop is with a disc like this. We're going to clean up all of this rust inside here, and then once it's all cleaned up, we'll come back and put it back together. Okay, now what we do is just take the brake pad out like this, and like this, and then we'll take these clips here off. You just pull them and they come right out. Same thing here. Now, any place that you have rust underneath here, if you have rust in here, at this point you want to clean that rust out of there. Now this is actually not rusted, so we're not going to have to do anything with that, but we are going to lubricate it before we put our new clips back on. Just a little bit of silicone in every place that the bracket is going to go. And then we just take this, put it over the top like that, and you push it down, just like that. Well, we'll do the same thing on this side here as well, just like that. And that's it, that's how our clips go. Now, what we're going to do also, let me get a rag, we're going to take our slide pins out. We're going to clean the grease off that's on the pins themselves. We're going to put a little bit of lubricant on. You don't need a heck of a lot, just a little bit. And then we'll put it back in just like that. Same thing here. Clean off all the grease that's on there, just like that. And then we'll just put a little bit of grease back on here so that everything slides nice and freely, just like that. Okay? Next thing we're going to do, every place that the brake pad is going to touch, you want to put a small amount of the synthetic grease, just like that. All right, so now everything will slide nice and freely. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our brake pad. And you see this clip right here on the brake pad? Now you see these brake pads, they don't have that clip on there. So what we're going to need to do is take this clip here, and we're going to replace it with the new clip right here on the side. All right? All right, and we're going to do the same thing on the other brake pad, which will be just like this here. We're going to put this new clip on here as well. Okay, just like that. All right, now before we go any further, we're going to go back and we're going to push that piston back in with these brake pads. So let's do that. Okay, so now we're going to take our caliper back off here. We're just going to hold the caliper right there for 1 second. We're going to put our brake pad in here. We're going to put our other brake pad in here. And then we take that tool that we use to recess the caliper, like this, put it in here, like that, and then we just turn it. And I hope you can see that, but you'll see that the pistons are slowly pushing back in. Now you don't have to kill it, you're just going to keep a little bit of pressure on it, and you'll see the pistons push a little way back in. Put these on the side for now. Now, as tempted as you are to not change that clip, don't do that. You have to make sure you change it. You just pry it out. And we're going to take our replacement clip the same way that this one comes out, just like this. And we're going to put our replacement clip back inside here. We're going to make sure that your clip came through in the back just the way it's supposed to, and as you can see it did. And then we're going to take this and put this off to the side for now, just like that. We're going to put our new rotor on here, and we'll start wrapping this up. Take your rotor, put your rotor over the top, just like that. Now just take that nut that we had, put that up on there like that. And you see how this rotor moves around? That's why we have that nut there, so we can screw this nut on and hold the rotor in place while we're working. Now it doesn't move. See? You can either put your brake pads on here, or you can put them on in the car itself once it's installed. I like to put them on here because it's a little bit easier, and they just go in just like that. All right? And we'll do the same thing with the other brake pad, just like this. All right, just like that. That's what it's supposed to look like. All right, so now we're going to take this, put it over the top of the rotor just like this. Squeeze your brake pads together. And then we're going to catch both of the bolts that previously came out. Okay. Now, there is torque specs on these bolts right here, but I'm just going to tighten them up for now, and we'll come back to that. Okay, nice and tight. Now, I just want to point this out. This rotor, I did clean it off with brake cleaner and a rag. We will wipe it down one more time before it leaves, but just want to let you know about that. All right, so now we're going to take our caliper. We're going to take a slight bit of grease and put it every place that the piston is going to touch, or the brake pad is going to touch. Just a little bit like this, every spot, just like that. Okay? And we're going to take the caliper, put it over the top, this, and you're going to push in those little slide pins right there. And we'll catch each one of the bolts. Now, the reason we change the hardware is to keep it from rattling, so you'll feel a slight pressure pushing back at it. It's normal because the brake pad is being touched into that anti-rattle clip right there. So we'll just screw this down like this, and then we'll come in with our ratchet and we'll tighten it up. Again, there's torque specs on these. And that's it. All right, so this side is then finished. We're going to take that nut back off now. All right, let me explain to you exactly what we did here again, and we'll go through it one more time. Okay, we cleaned up the face where the rotor is actually going to touch on the hub. We cleaned up all that rust inside there, so now it's nice and clean. We installed our new hardware kit on the mounting bracket here and here, and we also changed the anti-rattle clip in the back, and that's where I was telling you it has to be above, just the way it is right there. That's how it's supposed to be. We tightened up that 18mm bolt there, and we also tightened up the 18mm bolt down here. We put the new brake caliper over, the brake caliper over the new brake pads. We lubricated every place that the brake pad is going to touch, all three here, and also on the two pistons. And then we tightened up the bolt here, and also the bolt here, and those are 13mm, so those are all tight. So fronts are done, and all right, we're going to go in the back now. Okay, front brakes are done. We're going to go now to the back, but if you're only doing the front brakes and you're not doing the back brakes, what you want to do at this point is you want to get into the vehicle, you want to pump the brake pedal, and you want to get that piston back up on top before you drive the car. The first couple of times you step on that brake pedal, it's natural for that brake pedal to go right to the floor because you're actually pushing those brake pads back out so that they're actually coming in contact with the new rotor. So it's very important that you pump that up before you drive it, and like I said, it's perfectly normal. You may get a little bit of burning smell, you may even see a little bit of smoke. That's perfectly normal as well because the rotors have that grease inside the ribs, so it'll smoke a little possibly too. Alright, but that's it. Let me get a new pair of gloves. Let's get in the back and we'll get started in the back. Okay, now for the back brakes, this is an example of what tools you're going to need for the back. We're going to need, of course, a disc like this to clean up any kind of rust on the hub, some synthetic grease, some brake pads, a new hardware kit, a screwdriver, and a pry bar, a tool like this to push the piston back in. We're going to need a 14mm socket on a ratchet. We're going to need an 18mm socket on a ratchet. This is to take off the caliper. This is to take off the mounting bracket. We are going to need a pair of cutting pliers like this to take those clips off. And we're going to need something, whether it's a file or sandpaper or emery cloth, to remove any kind of rust that may be on the mounting bracket. And of course that nut to hold the to hold the rotor back on the vehicle while we're working. If you need it, you may not, but we'll see how it goes. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is just like in the front, we're going to come over here, we're going to snap these clips off right here, and we're going to throw them away. They're then garbage. We are going to come in here with a pry bar through the back over in here. We're going to have the tip come out through there, and we're going to push that piston back into the bore as far as it'll go. This one is a little bit different than the front, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to remove that bolt right there, and we're also going to remove this bolt right over here. Those both are 14mm. We're going to take our caliper, relocate it up to this area right over here, and then we're going to take off the mounting bracket. And the mounting bracket, just so you know, oh, that's a lot better, isn't it? Okay, the mounting bracket, just so you know, is a 18mm bolt right there, and there's also another one down the bottom over here that we're going to actually have to remove here as well. All right, so all right, let's get set up and let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is those clips on here that we talked about. We're just going to get the clips like this, hook them, pull it, and we're going to break that clip off. And like I told you with the fronts, we don't need this. We're going to throw it away. That clip is actually just for during the building portion of the vehicle. After that, we don't really need it. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here with a small pry bar like this, put it through the back so that it sticks out right up in here, and then you just hold slight pressure on it. And you see how that piston pushes all the way back in? So now that piston is pushed in, and we don't have to worry about using this tool to recess that piston. All right, so that tool we don't need. And at the same time, we're going to check these slide pins to make sure that they slide properly. And the way you do that is just slide it back and forth. You see how it slides? So it's nice and free, so we don't have to worry about anything with the slide pins being rusted. Now we're going to break these two 14mm bolts loose right here. This one and this one. Once they're broken loose, you just take them out by hand. Same thing here. Now sometimes when you take these out, I'll show you. Sometimes when you take these out, you see the hardware right here, the slide pins. Sometimes these slide pins will actually rotate while you're trying to unscrew it. If that's the case, you would just come in here with a wrench. I'm thinking it's a 18 millimeter. It is probably 17, it's a little bit loose, but you would just hold it here while you rotate it out, but that's not the case. All right, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to take out those two bolts in the back, those two 18 millimeter bolts. So we're going to remove them, and they just break loose. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Okay, so we're going to break these two bolts in the back loose. These are the two 18 millimeters. And you want to break both of them loose before you take one. Before you take one out, you want to break them both loose. Okay, we're going to take this off to the side. We are going to change the hardware kit here, but we'll come right back to that. Okay, then you take the rotor and you just rock it back and forth like this. And we take the rotor right off the car. Truck, I should say. Now, if this was rusted inside here, you would need to clean this off, but this one is actually nice and clean. I know you can probably see something there, but there is nothing that you feel on here. It feels pretty decent, so we're not going to have to do anything with that. Now we're going to take our rotor. Now, this is your parking brake adjustment right here, and you come in through the back with a screwdriver to adjust it, but we'll see how that goes. All right, now we'll put our rotor back on. All right, so that's got plenty of drag on it, so we're not going to have to adjust it. It feels fine the way it is, so we're not going to adjust the parking brake. But if you had to, you need to get in through the back here with a screwdriver to adjust that little star wheel, but that's not the case here. All right, let's get set up, and we'll change that hardware kit next. Now we can take this brake pad out like this brake pad out like that, and then we're going to take out this one. This is the hardware, and this at the same time. Okay. Now any kind of rust that you have in this area right in here and here, as well as here and here, needs to be cleaned off at this time. This does not have to be cleaned off. It's fine, but if it were, then you would come in here with a file just like this, and you would clean it out just like that till you get everything nice and clean inside there. But like I said, that's not the case right here. It's nice and clean. All right, then we put a little bit of silicone every place that hardware kit's going to touch. All right, then we take our clips like this, put the clip over the top, just like that, and push this down, and make sure that this clip right inside here is pushed down all the way, otherwise it's going to interfere with the rotor when you put the rotor back on. All right, we're going to put our clip back on over this side here, just like this, and again, push it over the top, and make sure that clip is down in there all the way, which it is. All right. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is let's take out these slide pins. You want to keep the slide pins in the location where you removed them from. We're just going to clean off any kind of grease that's on there, and then we're just going to put a very slight bead on here like this, and then we'll take this, put it back in, and make sure that the boot pops right back up to the top there. Same thing on this one. Now there is brake cleaner on this rag, just so you know. Just like that. And then we'll just push it back in. Make sure it pops up all the way on the top. And that's it. It's up as far as it has to go. Okay. Next thing we're going to do now is every place that the brake pad is going to touch, we're going to put a little bit of silicone, just like this. Okay? But this one here is the shoe that has the clip is on the correct side. You can see how this was the mirror image? So this one is not the correct one. Alright, so this is the one that goes on the inside. Just like this. And that's how that goes right there. We'll turn this around. And this one you can see, it's the same as this one right here. So we're going to take the other brake pad and we're going to put it in right here. We'll put this one in here just like this. And this. And that is what it's supposed to look like when it's all put back together. Now we'll go over to the car and we'll put this back on the vehicle. Take this and put it over the top like this, and squeeze the brake pads together, and you catch both of the bolts that hold the mounting bracket. You want to catch them both before you tighten up either one of them, because otherwise it may be slightly off and you're going to have trouble getting the bolt back in there. Okay, we'll snug these up. Okay. All right, make sure your brake pads are pushed in all the way. We're going to take a little bit of the silicone, the synthetic silicone, and we're just going to lubricate every place that the brake pad is going to touch. You don't have to have a lot, just a little bit. Lift it over the top like this. Push the slide pin in a little bit. Same thing on the bottom. Catch the both bolts. Before we tighten anything up, we're just going to catch both of them. And we'll just snug them down. Now remember what I told you, if this rotates here, you can hold that with the 18mm wrench. That's it, we're all done. All right. Let me just recap everything we did. Okay. We cleaned up the bottom here where the rotor goes on to the axle itself. Make sure there's no rust on there. We replaced our rotor with the new. We did clean the rotor, just so you know, with brake cleaner to get off any kind of grease. Sorry, the battery just died. Alright, so I will clean this off one more time to make sure that all of the grease is off of here. We changed our hardware kit. We lubricated every place that the brake pad is going to touch. We made sure our 18mm bolt here and down on the bottom here are both tight. We installed our new brake pads and lubricated where the brake pad is going to touch onto that metal clips. We lubricated our slide pins. We put every place that the brake pad is going to touch on the caliper, we lubricated with a little bit of that synthetic grease, as well as the piston where it touches the brake pad. And now we tightened up. The last thing we did was we tightened up the 14mm here and here, and that's it. We're ready to roll. All right. Okay, so that's it. We have the front brakes done, the front rotor's done, hardware done, rear rotors done, rear hardware done, rear brake pads done. That's it, we're ready to drive. We're obviously going to put the wheels back on the car, tighten them up, and then we're going to get in the vehicle. We're going to pump that brake pedal because, like I was telling you in the front, every time you pump it, that piston pushes out a little bit each time until it comes in contact with the rotor, and then you'll have a nice firm pedal. If you get in the vehicle and try to drive it without pumping that up, you're going to step on the brakes and it's going to go right to the floor and you're going to have a problem. So make sure that you pump that pedal up before you drive it. That's it, we're done. All right, as always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.